Morning, buenos días, bonjour. Welcome to another cycle of webinars from the ISA. My name is Eduardo Manciti. I'm the Executive Secretary. And today I have the honor of continue with this set of webinars that were very useful for teachers and for principals of the different schools, not only from our network, but from other schools around the world. And today I have the honor to present Michelle Raymond. Michelle is an international exam coaching teacher from Woodside School from Uruguay. She's a special project coordinator and she's a Cambridge approved oral examiner. She was former director of studies TELF International in Buenos Aires. So I think that is very relevant in this pandemic today. The topic, what it really means to prepare learners for the 21st century, because our students need different tools to cope with the new reality, with the virtual reality, and let's hope that we will go to presential classes very shortly. So with no further ado, I give the word and the floor to Michelle.
Thank you very much, Edgardo, and welcome everyone. I know there's some people from Mexico and from Turkey and Spain, and I think obviously, hopefully some of you from Uruguay too. So I'm going to say good afternoon, but I'm also going to say I'm sure there's some people who are going into the evening, so good evening. And maybe there's even one or two with a good morning. So welcome to this webinar hosted by the ISA. As Edgardo said, my name is Michelle Raymond. I'm originally from South Africa, from Cape Town. My husband and I came to Uruguay 6 years ago. Via 5 years previously to that, we were in Argentina. But today I am coming from Woodside School in sunny Punta del Este in Uruguay. And I'm very, very happy to be able to present this webinar to you. I'm absolutely passionate about education. In fact, when I was at school, I used to hate Friday afternoons because it was the weekend and I just wanted to be at school all the time. I think that love for learning kind of continued because although I look forward to my weekends now, I still love being at school. And I'm absolutely passionate, as I said, about education. My first class that I ever taught was way back in the last century, in 1989. So I've been involved in education for some time, looking at various aspects, from being in the classroom to being more of an administrative role, a facilitating role. And today I'm going to share some of my thoughts and some of my ideas with you. Well, here we are, almost a quarter of a way through the 21st century. All of our students were born this century, and those in year one now will be finishing school in 2032. My presentation's got a little stuck here, so let's see what's happened. There we go.
Michelle, sorry, we hear with some echo your voice. Do you have another device?
No, no, I don't. Should I maybe turn the sound down a little?
Please do.
Okay, it might be a little loud if I turn the sound. Is that a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So those that in year one now will finish high school hopefully in 2032. And I really wonder what that world is going to look like. Our world is a world of constant change. It's a world of uncertainty. It's a world of media and information overload and bombardment. It's a digitally and globally interconnected world. Our learners need skills and knowledge to succeed. But how does this all impact on our learners, on our curriculum, and what we teach? Are we really preparing our students for what lies ahead? If we want to prepare our students for success in school, in work, and in life, we have to give them the opportunities to learn 21st century skills. This is essential. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed not only the way we teach and the way our students learn, but the world we knew in December 2019, or even the world we knew in February and March this year, is gone. The pandemic has affected many areas of our lives, and thank God for technology, because we've been able to continue to communicate, to collaborate, to learn, and of course teach. This in turn has expanded our skill set and our vocabulary. I mean, how many of us really knew or even used Zoom, Google Classroom, Kahoots, Edmodo, Seesaw, and a whole load of other platforms and teaching sites before March this year? The world has changed, and the world we knew 6 months ago is gone. It will not return. I hear so many people, students, their parents, even some of my colleagues saying, I can't wait for things to return to normal. But I think honestly, what we are experiencing now is the new normal. And I'm really excited about all the possibilities and opportunities that lie ahead. Recently, I watched a video clip from the Smithsonian Student Travel. It was about our rapidly changing world and, of course, teaching 21st century skills. But what impressed me most about that was that the idea of teaching the same knowledge and skill set that we've been doing for years is not going to be enough. It's really not going to help students to address the challenges that they're going to face in the future. In the past, teachers could expect what they taught would last their students a lifetime. But today, schools must prepare students for jobs that have not yet been created. They have to prepare students for technologies that have not yet been invented, and for problems that we do not yet know will arise. One of the interesting things that came up from the video was that many of the current jobs like a social media strategist or a sustainability manager, didn't even exist in 2002. So I've entitled this presentation, What It Really Means to Prepare Learners for the 21st Century. My aim is not to go through these skills telling you how our school is teaching them. I think that would be rather arrogant on my part. But I would rather want you to leave this webinar with questions about your teaching practices and their effectiveness in preparing your students. Like any good teacher, I love Google. And so when I was preparing this presentation, I obviously Googled 21st century skills. And I got 425,000 hits. Unbelievable, pretty impressive. But what are those 21st century skills, and really what is so 21st century about them? And why do educators and business people keep going on about these skills and why we need them? So one of the sites I entered was the Glossary of Educational Reform. Oh, that sounded pretty grand. And they defined the 21st century skills very broadly. A broad set of knowledge, skills, work habits, and character traits that are believed to be critically important to succeed in today's world. Well, that still didn't really answer my question. So I dug a little bit deeper. And I thought, once I started going through these things, I found, well, I don't really know what's so 21st century about them. I mean, we've all been on workshops and we've all been or listened to webinars or read papers about the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. And those have all kind of become the catchphrases or the catchwords that we use to define 21st century skills. But it's really so much more than that. If you look at the other diagram on the page, you'll see that in the center we have the 21st century learner. And they're surrounded by really important skills. And probably many people would consider these like the old-fashioned skills, literacy and numeracy. But without them, we can do nothing. Surrounding those, we have a wonderful, colorful little chart with what we've come to know as the 21st century skills: the critical thinking, creativity and innovation, social responsibility, environmental awareness, digital literacy, etc. But I think what's really important is the white band that surrounds those, the subject and discipline areas. We are still teaching our students geography, history, maths, English, Spanish. And what we need to do as 21st century teachers is not only have those subjects, but use those colorful areas in the center. We need to use those skills for the students to gain the knowledge, so that at the end we have a whole, I don't even know the word, a whole engaged learner, an engaged thinker, an ethical citizen, an entrepreneurial spirit. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today, is that complete picture. Yes, the 4 C's are really important, but we need to go expand. We need to go beyond that in order to do justice for our learners. So really, I figured after all this that there's nothing really new about 21st century skills. Now, some of you probably won't agree with me and say, well, that's not true. But let's expand that a little bit more. Do you really think that in the old days, whenever those were, people didn't need to think critically and to solve problems? What about the development of tools, agricultural advancements, discovery of vaccines, or land and sea exploration? Don't you think that people back then, in the old days, would have to have communicated and collaborated to progress? And many business leaders, politicians, educators seem to agree that we are dealing with the 21st century skills shortage, and that this forms a barrier to economic growth and business success. So why is this? If we've had these skills and we've been teaching them to our students, why is there this gap? Why do we all seem to think that these skills are suddenly so critical and we need to discuss them in such detail? Well, I think education today is about ways of thinking, which involve creativity and critical approaches to problem solving and decision making. But it's also about the ways of working, including communication and collaboration, as well as the tools that they require. Those advocating the necessity for 21st century skills point to a gap between the skills that the new graduates have and the skills that employers need. Now, this isn't new. We always know when you go for your first job interview, they say, well, you don't have the experience. We need to bridge that gap. Now, I think there may be two possible reasons for this gap. Firstly, government policy and educational institutions have generally lagged behind the business sector. Institutions, by their very nature, don't conform to society as it stands. Well, they do conform to society, sorry. They're not game changers. They don't start trends. They might follow them, but they never really start a trend. Another reason is that the meaning of knowledge has changed. For example, in pre-industrial times, most people needed to know how. In the 20th century, people mostly needed know what. And now in the 21st century, we need to know what, but we also need to be able to do things with this knowledge in order to create new knowledge. So the skills are not new, but they're important, and we need to find ways to teach them more explicitly and intentionally. But how? Experts have identified 3 things that need to happen so that we can support our learners. So let's take a look at those. The first one is that our institutions, our schools, our curriculums, our instructional programs need to be all inclusive. It goes without saying we should be inclusive and not exclusive when it comes to education. The second thing is teachers need to be professionally trained. And by that, I don't mean just going to university or teachers training college. I mean, teachers need to understand how knowledge and skills are intertwined and how to design more complex learning tasks that allow learners to practice with knowledge and skills in an integrated fashion. And thirdly, we need assessments that can accurately measure the more complex learning tasks. Because in all fairness, just to give one example, who can effectively collaborate without proper communication? And how do we assess that? It goes without saying, everyone wants learners to think and work better, and for them to be able to deal with today's information overload. But the worst thing that we can do is to think that we should just skip the knowledge, the traditional reading, writing, and arithmetic, the 3 R's, and replace them with the 4 C's. We need to bridge, we need to include the R's and the C's and put them together. And that way we can bridge that gap. Success in the 20th century really requires knowing how to learn. Students today are likely to have several careers in their lifetime. They must develop critical thinking and interpersonal communication skills to be successful in an increasingly fluid, interconnected, and complex world. Technology allows for 24/7 access to information. There's constant social interaction, easily created and shared digital content. And in this setting, educators can use technology to create engaging and a personalized environment to meet the emerging educational needs of this generation. No longer is learning one size fits all or confined to the classroom. The opportunities that technology gives us should be used to reimagine and redesign 21st century education, focusing on preparing students to be global citizens and learners for life. 21st century learning should not be controversial. It's simply an effort to define modern learning using modern methods. 21st century learning builds core knowledge in the subject areas, but recasts them for today's world, where global perspective and collaboration skills are critical. It's no longer enough just to know things. The internet, which has enabled instant global communication and access to information, holds the key to creating a new educational system where students use the information at their fingertips and work in teams to accomplish more than what one individual can alone, thereby mirroring the modern day workplace. To be prepared for the 21st century, our students require the following skills and knowledge. They need to have an understanding of history, of civics, of geography and maths and science, so they can comprehend unforeseen events and act wisely. They need to have the ability to speak, read and write well in their mother tongue, and to master at least one foreign language in order to communicate effectively. They need to engage in the arts to enrich their lives. They need to have close encounters with great literature to gain insights into timeless dilemmas and the human condition. They should have a love of learning so they continue to develop their minds even when their formal schooling ends. Self-discipline to pursue their goals to completion. To have an ethical and a moral character. To have the social skills to collaborate fruitfully with others. The ability to use technology wisely. The ability to make and repair useful objects for personal independence. And the ability to play a musical instrument for personal satisfaction. Now that we've considered the skills and the core concepts that our learners need, perhaps we should take a look at ourselves as the teachers, the educators, the policymakers. What does a 21st century educator look like? That's right. It's you and me. That's what we look like. A 21st century teacher is student-orientated, is a forward thinker, collaborates and works as a team, is actively engaged with their students, flips the class, uses technology to engage and motivate students. A 21st century teacher stays relevant and is a lifelong learner. I recently read an article that said, if you would like to be a student in your own class, then you've done something right. That's quite an interesting point. Would I want to be a student in my class? So, what can we do to ensure optimal teaching and learning in our classrooms? I've come up with a short list, and I'm sure there are so much more, and I know many of you are already practicing them, but I think it's a good for us to reflect on these, to reassess them, to refocus, rethink, and maybe replan some of our activities that we do in the classroom. The first one that I've kind of earmarked is having a learner-centered classroom. And I think that really goes without saying, and having students as producers. As our students have access to any information possible, there certainly is no need to spoon feed them with knowledge or teach the one-size-fits-all content. Students have different personalities, they have different goals and needs, and offering personalized instruction is not just possible, but it's desirable. When students can make their own choices, they own their learning. Their motivation increases and they put in more effort. It's perfect. It's an ideal recipe for better learning outcomes. And which teacher really wouldn't want that? The students as producers. Students today have the latest and greatest tools, yet most of them only use them for basic communication with family and friends via a few social media sites. Even though our students are now viewed as digital natives, many are far from producing any digital content. They own expensive devices with capabilities to produce blogs and infographics and books and how-to videos and tutorials, just to name a few. But in many cases, they are still asked to turn those devices off and work with handouts and worksheets. Sadly, often these papers are simply thrown away once they've been graded. Many students do not even want to do them, let alone keep or return to them for later reference. When given the chance, students can produce beautiful and creative blogs, movies, digital stories that they feel proud of and really want to share with others. Learning new technologies. To be able to offer our students choices, we need to increase our own hands-on experience and expertise to be useful. Since technology keeps developing, learning a tool once and for all is not an option. The good news is that technologies are new for everyone, so you can jump in at any time to learn. Go global. Today's tools make it possible to learn about other countries and people firsthand. Of course, textbooks are still sufficient, yet there is nothing like learning languages, cultures, and communication skills by actually talking to people from other parts of the world. It's a shame that with all the tools available, we still learn about other cultures, peoples, and events from textbooks. Teaching students how to use the tools in their hands to visit, or at least virtually, any corner of this planet will hopefully make them more knowledgeable and empathic. Collaborate. Technology allows collaboration between teachers and students, and it allows us to work with other educators to create digital resources, presentations, and projects together. Forums like this are a super way for us to collaborate using modern day tools. My absolute favorite, project-based learning. As today's students have access to authentic resources on the web, experts anywhere in the world, and peers learning the same thing somewhere else, teaching with textbooks is so last century. Today, students should develop their own driving questions, conduct their research, contact experts, create final projects to share, all using devices already in their hands. All they need from their teacher is guidance. So, innovate. I invite you to expand your teaching toolbox and try new ways that you have not tried before, such as teaching with social media or replacing textbooks with web resources, not for the sake of the tools, but for the sake of the students. And finally, keep learning. As new tools and new technologies keep emerging, learning and adapting is essential. The good news is that it's fun. Even 20 minutes a day will take you a long way. They not only provide a framework for successful learning in the classroom, but they ensure students can thrive in a world where change is constant. Feel strained. We want our learners to enter the world with an understanding of what it takes to be a good citizen. One that can be civically engaged, a critical thinker, digitally literate, globally aware, and an effective communicator. The challenge for us as educators is gigantic. Are you ready to accept the challenge and really prepare your learners for the 21st century? Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Great presentation. A lot of key concepts. And what I was thinking is the concept about the lifelong learner, and that's what I tell the students, that we have to keep learning no matter what age we have, and
Absolutely.
and we have to keep learning all the time. I don't know if we have some questions from the audience, or Michelle, you said you want to ask them
Maybe
if
people,
they want to
yeah,
share something.
perhaps people have some comments, or some would like to share some of their own experiences, their own ideas about preparing students, something that they're perhaps doing or something that they have tried and it's worked really well. I do just want to add that I'm not anti-textbooks. I know I said in my presentation that we should replace textbooks as much as we can with digital tools. I'm not anti-textbooks, so if there's anyone from publishing houses here, I don't want them to think that I'm not a fan of textbooks. I just think that there's a place for everything, and that we can use different tools to engage our learners in a different way.
Let's see if we have some questions. What I have he said, Jose Luis Barragan from Mexico said, thank you, great presentation, very on cue and motivating. From
Thank you.
our new member school from Mexico, El Roble. Here is a question from John Lees, or a comment. He says, we find project-based learning is a great platform and tool that allows for the development of the 21st century skills mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think we should really try, not just only in primary school, high school. I mean, all students are able to do a project-based learning. And I think it's really essential, absolutely essential.
What I find useful once I travel with 4 kids to an exchange in a school in Canada is that they had to guide me through the airports, because we always followed the parents and said, Eduardo, you know all the airports. No, I don't know them. I just follow the signs or try to learn. But now I don't know anything, so you have to take me to our next gate. And I think that way of learning, based on experience and based on solving problems in the real life, actually is very useful for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think also projects like Model UN projects, projects like the 48-hour film festival, social responsibility projects. I even think just doing a basic, our school does a lot of the ISA speaking exams, and we've been doing them for a number of years, and just the students get really excited when they are able to have interaction with a foreign examiner, and able to speak, like they say, real English with a native speaker. They absolutely love that. And I think to expose students to as many of those opportunities, it really gives them the extra that they need. I mean, Uruguay is a very small country, and we don't have maybe that much opportunity to as if maybe in Europe or in bigger countries. But we grab as much as we can to do as much as we can, because we just feel that it just gives students a broader base that they can then work from.
Yes, also I agree. You gave me the cue there. We have our virtual youth leadership encounter in October that is going to be a model of the United Nations, and I think students there lived a lot of experiences. The experience helped them to motivate and also to prepare and schedule themselves and plan their way of learning. And we have the short film festival that we could share with everyone. What do we think about internationalism? We have some more comments. Mayor Mary from St. Catherine's Moreland said, project-based learning is excellent. We could do a project together between our schools. We have Genaro Antonio from El Colegio El Roble, that he's saying, will teaching the needs of the next century for our students, would we not be triggering a possible existential crisis?
That's a good question. A very good question. I think everything is so unknown. I think maybe before this, the COVID pandemic, we always thought we had a plan. And I think this pandemic has really turned everything upside down. I think we have plans, but we have to really be flexible and kind of go with the flow. So I don't know. I think we need to teach. I think the skills that we need to teach and I don't know if flexibility is a skill, but it's kind of something that we need, and people need to be flexible. And adaptable. I think those are, for me at this point in time, are kind of key skills. Yes, there's the decision making and the critical thinking, etc., creativity, different ways of dealing with stuff. But I really think that adaptability and flexibility at this point are something that we need to, change it. Change is inevitable. And things are always going to be changing. I think the only things we can be guaranteed of, I think someone famous once said, is death and taxes. Those are the only things that we can be guaranteed of. Everything else, we don't know. So yeah, I know it hasn't really answered that question, but it's a good question, and maybe people. I don't know if there's anyone else who maybe has some thoughts that they would like to, type in the chat or to comment on.
We had more comments. Mukahid Sekin, who is the principal from Istanbul International School, says, allowing students to take over is a great way of helping them use the skills we're talking about. Teachers need to take a backseat.
Absolutely. I think students as presenters, flipping the classroom, I think that's just a great way for students to have a learner-centered classroom, not a teacher-centered classroom. I think those days are long gone.
We have more comments. Clarissa says, ISE oral English exams are great for this last point Michelle is talking about. Also, we need to lobby training institutions to change their mindset.
Yeah, I think that's what I said. I think it has to come kind of a policy. Once our national or departments, our education departments change, then schools can change. I think schools can make small changes, but when it comes to overriding policies, like specifically something like maybe a grading system, the way that we grade students, where we grade students by numbers, I really don't. As I said, I don't know how do you give someone a 1 or a 2 or a 5 or a 10 for collaboration, or how do you grade the project just by a number system? I think so. The grading rubrics really need to be reassessed, and we need to work on that. And I think we need as educators in schools and principals need to lobby perhaps departments and to change those. We need to take a more active role ourselves.
We have more comments. Susan says, it is so important to work with the C's and the R's together and not isolated, as you mentioned. Project-based learning is an inclusive and an excellent way of learning.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have more questions. Gabriela Villanueva from Colegio El Roble from Mexico said, what should I be more concerned about as a teacher? To help my students with personal and emotional skills or academic contents?
I think both are really important, and we need to look at how we can incorporate the two together. I think you have to take into consideration the emotional state of the student and what's happening in the surrounding environments, because that's certainly going to affect the way that they learn. But at the same time, their environment will also probably predetermine what kind of skills they will need in order to cope and to succeed in that society. So again, I don't think you can separate the two. I think the two need to work together. I hope that answers Gabriela.
I don't know if we have more questions or comments, but well, we don't have. I wanted to thank you very much.
No, absolutely welcome.
And I think it's very important. And students, I met students from 18, 19 years old that make different apps to help, for example, deaf people to communicate, and they collaborate. There's a lot of free source in internet where they can collaborate and they can work together, because in the end is sharing and working together, and I think the word is collaboration. And sometimes you cannot grade that if you, with a collaboration, can help a community with, for example, light or water or whatever they need. So in that case, I think that the word collaboration and the word guide from the teacher, not the one who has all the knowledge, I think that's are very important concepts. Just the last comments. Nowadays, because of the pandemic, our state system, we are not allowed to use number for evaluation, so we evaluate by comments.
Ah, that's fantastic. Yeah. And that would be nice if it wasn't just for the pandemic. It would be nice if it is for all the time, for comments. Just a comment that I have, and I don't know how other people will feel about this. We're doing a lot of presentations here in the ISA, different kind of professional people from different institutions and different schools. And I was just, while you were talking about collaboration and some of the student projects that you've been involved in, Edgardo, it just kind of made me think about, wouldn't it be great if we could have in maybe one of these webinars actually have some of our students coming and speaking and sharing some of their experiences. We always somehow we always say we should include students, but we never really do. And I know, with this pandemic, it's been interesting to hear how teachers have coped and how parents have coped, but very little has been done of how the students have coped, and let the students have a forum that they can speak on. So maybe it's something, a possible option for future, letting some of the students come and share their experiences.
Yes, definitely, Michelle. This channel and this ISA channel is open. We have to, of course, have and schedule everything and plan everything with the schools and the teacher, and also a teacher have to be the moderator of the topic. But we can share, and the students can share. So I think it's a great idea, and I have that in mind. not only teachers and principals, but also students with projects, with feelings. And I think that will help that students here in Argentina or in Uruguay can have the same feelings and problems that people across the world can have in Malaysia, in Turkey, China, in Japan,
Of course,
etc.
yeah. And
So I think
I
we
think
can do that.
yeah, forums like this are just absolutely wonderful. And if there's a positive thing that's come out of the pandemic is that I think we are all actually collaborating and communicating so much more than we ever did before. So I know we're not just chatting with families on Zoom and having classes on Zoom. We're just being able to do so much more than we did before. So thank you, Edgardo, and the ISA for the opportunity to share my thoughts and my ideas. And hopefully it's been a little inspiration for a few people, or maybe just made people think about what they're doing and why they're doing it. So thank you very much for the
Now,
opportunity.
thank you, Michelle. And I also encourage other staff from our schools or companies or whatever person or they or the company want to share collaboration in education. It's welcome here to ADC and to the channel. Also, this presentation will be here in the YouTube channel for you to consult whenever you want. So thank you again, Michelle. Thank you, Woodside School from Uruguay. And let's see each other on the 26th of August for a webinar of the Eco Schools, that is our institutional partner, about sustainable consumption. That is a very important topic also today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.